Hello and welcome back to the Canon Sports Show. Today we are going to be talking about the ASU's first game of the season, the first football game of the season, and yeah, let's get into it. So ASU beat Southern Utah 24-21. It was a competitive game towards the end, as Southern Utah scored 14 in the second half to bring it within three, but ASU managed to escape with the victory. This should be talked about though. In between the two halves, there was a massive break. I don't know exactly how long it was, but it was more than 2.5 hours. So I think that really changed the game. It seemed like the game was played in two halves, especially for ASU. ASU just they looked really sharp in the first half. Rashada was on point, and they went to the first half with a lot of momentum. And it seemed like in the second half they looked more stagnant, and Rashada wasn't in rhythm. He was missing throws. He doesn't miss, and it was unfortunate, but I I still think there was a lot to take away from this game. But again, like this is a very unusual circumstance for a game. You don't typically get big ass delays like this, and so I'm not gonna take this game, 100% and just say, oh, okay, yeah, ASU they barely beat Southern Utah, who isn't good, and so because of that, ASU is just a really shitty team. Like that's just not true. But anyway, so going into the game, I was looking for obviously how well Jaden Rashada played, how the penalty situation would be for ASU. I wanted to see how we looked on both sides of the ball, like on in terms of both sides of the ball, in terms of what we did well, what we did bad, just seeing how we looked on both sides. I wanted to see how Dillingham looked in his first game coaching, and then I wanted to see how some of our best players performed, such as Jalen Conyers, Elijah Badger, and Jordan Clark. So starting with Rashada, I was really impressed by him. He was really good. He looked really good in his first start in college football. Like once he got going in the first half, we were consistently going down the field, either scoring or getting scoring opportunities. He made some really good deep throws, especially one on Xavier Guillory that resulted in a touchdown. But even one over to Malaquan Stovall. That was Stovall's one catch of the game, but it was a really big one. Really great throw downfield. And in the second half, however, he did look a bit stiff. And I do really think it just comes down to that huge break in between the two halves. You gotta understand that Rashad is a very young quarterback. Like, he's not used to playing college football in general, let alone having a huge ass break in between. Like, I think a lot of guys weren't sure that they were gonna play a second half. And so I think that really impacted it. So I don't want to look at the second half too much. But we went into the second half with a lot of momentum. But again, when you don't play or warm up for over 2.5 hours, it's really hard to get back to the game. So he struggled a bit, at least in the beginning, especially in the third quarter. He really struggled a bit. And he started to pick it up towards the end of the game, and especially in the fourth quarter, but a lot of penalties cost us some more scoring opportunities. Overall, he's got a lot. He's got to work on still. His biggest critique has to be he looks very focused in on who he wants to pass to. In the future, he needs to survey the offense better. He needs to be looking all around because there was times where we had wide open receivers, and like I like the fact because he can make a throw anywhere. But again, when you're focusing on purely one person, maybe you're trying to make a tight window. Maybe there's a dude who doesn't need that tight window because he's already wide open. But overall, he's only going to get better as he continues to play and as Dillingham gets to work with him more. And I think that he's going to be really good this season. It'll be fun to see how he progresses, the entire season. In terms of penalties, we did not do a good job. We had a lot of really stupid holding penalties that cost us a lot in that second half. Penalties have been a huge downfall for ASU over the last couple of years. We've been, I think, third in penalty yards per game with like FBS schools. So it's extremely important that we figure this out. And I know that Dillingham really wants to work on that, but we just did not look great on the penalty side. And so, one thing I do want to point out is that a lot of our penalties happened in the second half, which, again, hopefully the delay was the biggest cause for these. It wasn't, our guys just being stupid. It was, they're just, their heads weren't in the game, which isn't an excuse. Like, they should be ready, but at the same time, like, how many games per year have this huge break in the middle? Like, not many. So, there's a lot that they still need to work on, but I'm willing to give him, at least another game and like evaluate it based off of a full game, not a huge delay. So next week should be more telling. On offense, we got the run game going really well. There were some bad moments, like just no gains, but for the most part, our running backs made a lot of really good plays, especially Scatabo. We'll talk about him later though. And then again in the first half, Rashada looked really good and it was huge for our offensive success. Other than penalties, we just really need to see Rashada improve more and command the offense better. But this is going to happen over time as he plays more, and I really think that Dillingham's going to figure out this offense. And again, we're going to see Elijah Badger actually play an entire game, so it's going to be good to see. On the defensive side, I was actually really impressed with the D line. They did a really good job. We had guys like just all over the field. We didn't let their run game get going, and they were a big reason that we won the game. The coverage at times didn't look super great though. It's something we need to work on, but you have to understand that there's a lot of transfer players that are playing together for the first time. Well, in like an actual game scenario. And so I think that they will play better with more playing time in practice, and communication is going to get better. And then I think as well, getting some more pressure on the quarterback will be important. We looked a little slow in that second half. I think that's why we didn't get as much quarterback pressure, but we didn't get a sack this game. And I mean, you don't necessarily need sacks because the pressure we got caused errors out of the Thunderbirds. So, but some more quarterback pressure would be nice because we have the talent to do so. In terms of how Dillingham looked, I actually was really impressed with how he looked. We had, for example, Clayton Smith. He had a targeting call on him pretty early in the game in the first quarter, and Dillingham pulled him over to the side, and he just reiterated to him like use this as a learning moment, and you could just see how Clayton Smith just looked pissed. Like you could just tell he was really upset with himself, and so I was really glad to see Dillingham just pull him aside, get in his head a bit, not like be mad because again, it wasn't like Smith was trying to hit him in the head, like, but unfortunately, it happened. But again, a learning situation is going to be great. And I love that Dillingham enforced that on him. And then there's so many moments where, he's on the sideline, you just see him yelling. Like, you can just tell he has that passion. He wants to be here. He wants to coach this team well. And I'm very excited to see him throughout the year. And then, as well as that, so the weather delay, obviously I've talked about how that impacted us a lot. Dillingham really didn't care, though. He said, like, there's no excuses. We needed to play better out of the half. And I love that mindset from him because he's not willing to give this team any slack. Like, he looks for the little mistakes. Like, he definitely calls our guys out when they play well. Like, for example, he talked about how Rashada looked really good, and he's not wrong. But at the same time, he also just talked a lot about how, like, we gotta play better at certain points. And I just love the way that he coaches. He wants to get the best out of his players, and I love that. So, our big players that I talked about earlier, Jalen Conyers, Elijah Badger, and Jordan Clark, they had some really good moments. Conyers had 2 really nice catches in the first half, but he got injured, and so he didn't come back in. I'm hoping it's nothing big. I haven't heard much about it, but it just looked like he landed on his shoulder wrong, and so hopefully it's just like a stinger. They just didn't want to risk it. Badger looked good when he came in the second half. Again, it's tough to tell because Rashad didn't look the same in the second half, so I feel like Badger didn't get as much of a chance to shine. But whenever he gets the ball, he's just a threat. Like, he doesn't get tackled easily. Like, whenever he gets the ball, he always breaks tackles. He makes guys miss. Like, we had one where he caught the ball like good 2-3 yards behind the first down line, and he just drags this dude on his back as he gets the first down. And then, obviously, his biggest play was the kickoff return. He ended up sitting on one of their defenders as he was tackled, and he didn't touch the ground. And he realized there wasn't a whistle blown, and he ran that thing super far down. I thought he was going to score a touchdown. And then Jordan Clark, he had a lot of good tackles. He had some really good pass deflections. I'm really excited to see him play. I think he's going to have a really good year for us and hopefully cement himself as a good player in the draft. So in terms of our top players this game, Cameron Scotto, I don't know if it's Scotabo or Scottaboo, because they were calling him Scottaboo on the broadcast. So I'm gonna call him Cameron Scottaboo just because I think that's what his name is. But 17 carries, 71 yards, and a touchdown, 4.2 average. He just looked really good. Like I've never seen him play before. I've seen some clips from him from our training camps and our practices, but no, I've never seen him play, and he just looked really solid out there. He seemed to not get tackled super easily. Like he has a lot of power, and then also for being such like a short guy as well, he seemed to move super well. Like he found the cuts really good. He made some really nice, jukes to get away from guys. I was really impressed by him. Obviously, Jaden Rashada, 18 of 31, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was really good. I wish he could have played better because he had so many good moments in that first half. But the second half, he just didn't look the same. But we got a big game against Oklahoma State next week that I'm sure he's gonna ball out for. And I mean, for his first college start, as a true freshman, that's pretty huge. Especially in a new system as well. It's not like he's going into a system that already works and he's just like fitting into it. This is a new system that he's got to figure out as well. So I'm very very excited to see how he plays. DeCarlos Brooks, he did a really good job this game. He was our second back, but 12 carries, 63 yards, 5.3 on average. He just looked really good. He made some really good plays, some clutch, short runs to get us the first downs. I was really impressed with him. And I could be wrong, but I do think DeCarlos Brooks is a freshman. I guess I could look at this quickly. Okay, no, I'm stupid. Sorry, he's a junior. My bad. But I thought they named one of our freshman running backs or something, like our second back. But either way, Brooks looked really good up there. Xavier Guillory, he was talked about a lot in training camp and practice, and I mentioned him in my last podcast as a guy to look out for, and showed up, led the team in receiving yards, had that huge touchdown catch. Like he's a big dude. When he gets his body in the right spot and Rashada makes a good throw to him, like he's gonna get that ball the majority of the time. I was very impressed with how he played. Jordan Clark, he had 5 total tackles, including 3 solos, and 2 passes defended. He just looked phenomenal out there. I talked about it earlier. He was just all over the field making really good plays, and especially I think one of his deflections was a clutch third down as well. He just looked really good out there. Uh, Demetrius Ford as well. I want to talk about. He only had 2 tackles, 1 solo, but he had a pass deflected, that was a really nice one from him, and then 1.5 tackles for loss, which is pretty huge. Like again, like he just looked really good up there. He seemed to be everywhere. He made some really good plays, and even if he didn't make the play, he was in the area forcing the Southern Utah, to have to do something different, and by therefore letting one of our other guys get a play. And then BJ Green. BJ Green was, you could argue, our best defensive player of the night. He didn't get any sacks, but countless pressure, countless pressure on the quarterback, and 4 tackles. He looked really good. He had one bad moment where he got a really stupid, personal foul penalty, but again, Dillingham pulled him over, and I think just got in his head a little bit about that and just told him like, hey, like you can't do that. But overall, very happy with how he played. He just looked to be everywhere. Overall, I'm very excited to see how this team is going to play. I really thought that there were some good moments in this game. Showed signs of an exciting team that can surpass expectations. I don't know. So I don't really got much more to talk about in this podcast. One thing I'm considering doing, I'm not sure if I want to add it into these current podcasts that I'm doing. I want to like go back and watch the games and especially watch our formations on defense, watch what seemed to work really well from offense. Again, I just don't know if I have the time to do that. I think what I might do is just do that on my own time, kind of like, go back and watch that stuff and maybe evaluate it a little bit. But I don't think I'm going to be able to put out a podcast, at least at this moment, because I'm still figuring out things with school and how I can make this work with school. It's going pretty well so far, but I'm still trying to figure everything out. But anyway, um, I was really happy with how ASU played. I'm very much looking forward to their game next week against Oklahoma State. I think that's on Saturday. I could be wrong, but yeah, I guess we can just check really quickly. I mean, we're already here, so might as well. 9. Yep, that'll be Saturday. So, yep, I can't wait to watch that game. That's gonna be a fun one. Cardinals podcast coming out this weekend. I'm sorry, there was a lot of stuff that happened with the Cardinals, and I didn't make a podcast for their third preseason game. I was just really busy and just didn't have the time. It's preseason. I'm gonna be honest, I hate preseason. Like, I really do. So, I just didn't feel motivated enough to, make time. out of my busy schedule. But Cardinals podcast coming this weekend. We're going to be discussing the roster as well as some of the recent trades that we've made and releases. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Again, I'll see you guys next week with a new Arizona State podcast. And oh yeah, but before I go too, I'm thinking I don't know like I also want to consider doing like I guess oh yeah I wasn't sure if I wanted to try and do like a pregame sort of thing where it's like okay yeah like Oklahoma State like if I talked about it in this podcast I think I'm gonna start doing a podcast before the game like the day before the game talking about the team we're playing and maybe talking about like injury updates just do like a little small podcast but yeah no it should be I think that's what I'm gonna do and so I'll see you guys probably the next podcast will be Friday for ASU at least but yeah uh, I'll see you guys later have a good day.